So The Running Man was directed by Edgar Wright and it stars a whole bunch of people, including Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, Coleman Domingo, Michael Cera, William H. Macy, Lee Pace, Sean Hayes, Katie O'Brien, Emilia Jones, Jamie Lawson. Whole bunch of people appear in this movie. And if you don't know the story of The Running Man at this point, it's based off a book by Stephen King. There was a movie in the 80s starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's about a man who is very poor. He needs money to save his family and such, and so he winds up competing in this very violent, very dangerous game show known as The Running Man, where he must evade people for the next 30 days and win a whole lot of money to save him and his family. So this was a movie I was looking forward to mainly because of Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is one of my favorite directors out there. I do love all of his movies. Well, love is a strong word. I enjoy a lot of his movies. I do think he has a very unique style. I do think he has great comedy. I do think his characters are very well done. I do think that he's one of those filmmakers where he's one of the few filmmakers these days where it's like, I get excited for a movie that they're doing no matter what. And he's always going to do something very different, very unique, very exciting. And when I heard he was doing a movie remake of The Running Man, or a reimagining, as some people would like to call it, I was kind of intrigued because it seems like the trailers themselves were very much in a style. I did like the cast. I did like the trailers I did see. So I was excited to see it, and unfortunately, so before this, I would say Last Night in Soho was my least favorite Edgar Wright movie. Now, The Running Man is my least favorite Edgar Wright movie, because, like, it felt very much unlike a lot of the movies that he's done previously, and doesn't really get very Edgar Wrighty until about the second act. And then by the third act, it gets insane. So let's talk about some of the things I do like in this movie. First off, Glenn Powell. I thought he was really good in this movie. Very interesting character. I thought he was very good in his action scenes. I thought he was very good. His character was very good. Josh Brolin, I thought he was a scene stealer in this entire movie as the main villain. I thought he was chewing the scenery throughout, but not in a bad way. I thought he was actually pretty good. Coleman Domingo, I also thought was pretty good as the host of The Running Man, and also Michael Cera. Michael Cera, as well as Josh Brolin, steals the entire movie. Unlike Josh Brolin, Michael Cera is only in it for about one scene, but man, what a scene it is. It is a lot of fun. I do think there are a lot of fun action sequences in this movie, only in the second half. Like, once The Running Man actually starts, that's when the movie actually becomes very interesting. And I do think it is over the top. It's kinetic. It has a lot of the Edgar Wright jokes you would see. Like, there's this one involving a letter, which I won't spoil it because it got a laugh from me in the theater. But I do think that it was very funny and very well done. And it's like, that's the Edgar Wright I was missing. There he is. And so and again, Michael Cera sequence is also very good as well. That was a lot of fun. And also, there are some unique moments about how they comment about society and such, where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of unique, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of already been done to death. And unfortunately, that's kind of where all my positives are, because the rest of this movie, I was very disappointed in. First off, this movie is not very Edgar Wrighty enough. If you've seen any of his movies, whether that's the Cornetto trilogy or any of the movies he has done outside of it, there's a unique style to his movies that feels very uniquely him. Even in something like, say, Last Night in Soho, which, despite the subject matter, still felt very Edgar Wrighty, this movie doesn't really feel like an Edgar Wright movie until about the second act. In the first act, it's kind of more just build up as to like what's going to happen later on, and then the third act, it becomes absolutely insane, and I felt like it was just very underwhelming. But I do think that's it. When it gets to the second act, that's when it's a lot of fun. And again, I was saying, oh, there's the Edgar Wright I was missing this entire time. I will say, too, that there are some performances or characters that I felt were very underwhelming. William H. Macy is in this movie for one scene. Yeah, and his character is awful. His character is really terrible, if I'm being honest. I won't spoil it by any means, but I felt like it was just such a waste for such an actor. And I also feel like there are a couple other actors who are kind of wasted in this movie. Jamie Lawson plays Glenn Powell's wife, and I thought her character could have been played by anybody. I felt bad because she's actually really good in Sinners. This movie, I felt like her character was just so poorly written. And also, there are some character aspects where it's like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, like, why they're doing some of these things. Like, you can kind of get a sense of, like, what some characters are doing. Like, there's this one moment by Coleman Domingo towards the end of the movie where it's like, that does not make any sense. But I won't spoil it by any means because it can be fun to watch at times. And by the end, I was like, okay, I kind of had a good time watching it. But the more I think about it afterwards, I'm like, I don't know if I like this movie as much as I did. Also, there are some plot points and reoccurring jokes I felt like just did not matter. Like, a lot of stuff comes out in the third act, And I felt like some of it just did not matter. Like there's some stuff about Lee Pace's character, which I thought was very underwhelming. Again, Coleman Domingo has some moments where it's like, well, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And also, there's like a running joke about like some of the shows that are in this dystopian society. Like, despite all these like violent game shows that are airing on television right now, there's one that's basically a parody of the Kardashians, which is like, okay, what is the point of this joke really? And they don't really have a point to it. I think the movie could have at least been a little bit better with the joke if they actually brought in like one of those characters from a TV show into the actual action, but that doesn't work out. And I'm like, then what's the point of the joke? Just call it out? I mean, don't get me wrong, I will make fun of reality shows like that, but I gotta need substance. And for a movie that feels like it needs substance, it's lacking substance. And again, it's the first act and the last act that I felt like were very underwhelming. The first act is kind of slow moving, and eventually, once you get into the Running Man itself, that's when the movie actually becomes interesting. But then the last act, so much is happening, so many new storylines are trying to throw in there. Some reveals happen that are just not that exciting. And I just felt like this is kind of underwhelming for an Edgar Wright movie. I was saying this for the last 4 years since Last Night in Soho came out. I thought, this is probably going to be the worst movie Edgar Wright directs, and it's honestly not that bad. This movie is very underwhelming compared to what he's done. And now I will say The Running Man is now my least favorite Edgar Wright movie. Also, I was kind of disappointed. The trailer kind of made it seem like this movie was going to be about him trying to evade everyone who's trying to get in on this action. I feel like the movie would have been a little bit more interesting if it's like more people kind of became more invested. I mean, with the way the movie handles it, it is kind of interesting about how people kind of become like fascinated by stuff like this and how they can portray these people like heroes and such. And I do feel like the movie could have been interesting if there was like a dynamic where it's like people kind of getting involved with the action, not just some of these soldiers. But I feel like the movie kind of missed out on an opportunity. And I feel like that's the best way to describe The Running Man. It is a missed opportunity. And I wish that everything in there is right. No pun intended. But you have a good director. You have a pretty good cast. You have a pretty unique idea. And again, you have the Stephen King storyline and also the Arnold movie to go off of. And I do feel like this movie could have been a lot better than it actually was. Again, probably not only it's probably my least favorite Stephen King movie adaptation of this year. I think I liked his other movies more than this. But I also, again, my least favorite Edgar Wright movie right now. So who knows what will happen. So The Running Man, even though there are some good sequences, some unique ideas, some decent performances, I felt like some characters were very underwritten or just not utilized enough. I feel like some of the plot points and reveals are just kind of lazy. Some of the comments about society can also be a little lazy at times too. The first act and the last act kind of fall apart for me. And again, I will say, when I watched it, I had a fun enough time that I was like, I would kind of recommend it. And so I would say, you should probably watch this movie in a streaming, like on a streaming service. Like, since it's from Paramount, it's probably going to hit Paramount Plus in a few months. And I think you would probably enjoy that movie there rather than watching it in a movie theater. So I will give The Running Man 2 out of 4 stars. Stream it. I'm not happy about this because, like, I love Edgar Wright, but this movie just kind of underwhelmed me. And the more I thought of it, the more I kind of was like, I just don't care. So, who's a director you like, and what is the most disappointing movie that you saw by them? That's probably the best question I can ask for a movie like this. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.